We are less than 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. The Buffalo Bills have 10 draft picks, and we're going to discuss another 2 of the top needs and prospects for the Buffalo Bills in this year's draft. Let's go.
Hi, I'm Bills defensive end Greg Rousseau, and you're listening to Nate and the Fellas on Circling the Wagons podcast. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Go Bills.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo. Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo.
The Bills make me wanna.
Hey, Bills Mafia. What's going on? Welcome to another episode of Circling the Wagons, a Buffalo fan base podcast. I am your host, Nate. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We have a tremendous episode for you guys. We are talking Bills' potential draft prospects at 2 key positions of need. If you missed our episode last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about defensive tackle and cornerback, 2 of our biggest needs. And now we're talking about 2 of the next biggest needs, guys that we can see in the first round, the day 1, day 2, potentially even day 3 that the Bills could pick for a number of different reasons. And we'll show some highlights and talk about some of the pros and cons of each player. So I'd like to welcome my co-host, John, ready to talk some Bills draft prospects. John, are you excited about the draft, man? I can't believe it's almost 2 weeks away. How are you doing?
Doing great. Love the draft. Been a big fan since the Bills have been, since their draft days. Like, that was like the biggest thing. It's like, oh, okay, what can they do to turn this around? And, well, it doesn't seem as significant these days because they're always in it. But, all they need is the next impact player to make the difference to get to the next level, which is the Super Bowl for the Bills. So it's still exciting. It's just, they're picking in the 30s instead of the teens. So it's a different aspect of it. But no, it's better. It's better to be always contending than always trying to squeak your way in the playoffs. So it's good.
It's a good place to be, for sure. Remember when it would be like top 15, like they'd be like picking number 11. So you really only needed to pay attention to 10 guys, right? Like it was crazy. And that was at all positions of need and now we're talking, we've already talked defensive tackle. We've already talked cornerback. We're going to go over wide receiver and defensive end tonight. And it's like, we could talk about 12 or 15 prospects altogether with these 4 positions, and none of them, might be drafted by the Bills in the first round or even in day 2. It's crazy. Like before you could count on like, yeah, we're probably going to definitely get one of these guys. Now you have no idea. Somebody might drop that should be a top 10, top 15 talent, or, the Bills might trade back or pick up some more picks. There's so many different options, but yeah, a much better place to be for sure as a Bills fan, because now we're kind of narrowing it down. Like we're already over the hump. Now we just need that extra, player or 2 to get us over the hump of, instead of being relevant, now to win the Super Bowl, right? So very interesting. 24/7 Buff Pandemonium just wrote in. Our guys over there said, do the Bills trade up this year? Which I think is a very interesting question. And we gave some prospects last week who the Bills could potentially trade up for if we'd like. John, if you were to take a wild guess, the Bills are picking number 30 in the first round. Looking at the prospects that we have so far, the ones we've talked about, the ones we've done research on, do you think it's more likely that the Bills stay put, trade up, or trade back in general? Because I could see each scenario, but I feel like if they trade up, it won't be that far from number 30, because I don't think Bean wants to give up a whole lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think from the first round perspective, I don't see them moving out of that spot. They have 2 second-round picks later in the round. Maybe they move up in the second. That could be a possibility to get a guy that they want that has fallen. But I think in the first, I don't think it's likely.
I think, it's funny. You're talking about it, and the more I think about it, is every team has roughly like 20. They always say like 20 to 25 players graded in the first round, right? And if there was like the 20th player out of 20, and they were available at 22 or 25, I could see Brandon Beane giving up one of those second round picks or maybe a fourth round pick to move up a few spots, not that many. Like if it ends up coming up to like 27, 28, and the Bills think somebody might jump up there, Bean loves to trade up a few spots just to get that guy that he really wants, as opposed to waiting around and he doesn't really like anyone there at that level, or he has a bunch of similar grades on those guys. I think that's
It's a wheeler and dealer. I think you go up or down. I mean, look at last year. He traded out of the first round and back down to the second, and they drafted Keon. Like you go either way, or just stay put. Either way.
Yeah. Yeah, Buff Pandemonium just brought up a great point. They say we move up in the second. I like that idea. I like that idea too, John. I mean, you wouldn't have to give up too much. I'm not even saying you'd have to give up the other second. Like you might be able to give up a fourth to move up a few spots and with either of those picks.
Exactly.
Because they don't have a third round pick. So yeah, move up a fourth or a fifth, depending on how far you have to move up, for sure. So it's going to be interesting, man. There's going to be, we've been talking, about what we might do next episode. I think we should do like a wish list of like guys that could be available. We hope might probably will never be available. And then, the tier of guys we think could be there, maybe, and then go from there. The guys that we think will be there. And is it worth a 30th overall pick? Is it worth trading down for guys with that kind of talent, or, trading back? So yeah. All right, John, let's get into it. So last week we started our discussion on the Bills' biggest needs. We started with the Bills' biggest needs. If you are not familiar, if you didn't hear the last episode, we've been working on our biggest board of Bills' needs since, maybe even before the season ended, to be honest, because it's always good to kind of say, hey, you're really good at this, John. If the draft were to start today, what position would the Bills draft, right? Like you'll do that in November, and I'm like, I haven't even thought about that, but it gets me thinking. And then as the season goes on, we start thinking about it more and more, and then the playoffs come and the Bills potentially lose in the postseason, and you're like, why did they lose? What position could they have had more talent at that would have got them over the hump, besides coaching or something like that? Something you can't control, right? So we came up with number 1 being cornerback, which we touched on last time. A defensive tackle, number 2, we touched on last time. Number 3, which we're going to talk about in this episode, it's defensive end, edge rusher. Number 4 is safety, which we're not going to really go over this episode because it's just a really bad draft for safety. And because cornerback is so deep, it's possible the Bills double dip at cornerback. We talked about, we hope that they do that for corner. And if they do, maybe one of those guys slides into safety potentially. Right now they have starters, so it's not as huge of a need. But again, wide receiver isn't a big need too, but there are some interesting guys that we looked at that the Bills could take a flyer on, and maybe, day 1, but more likely day 2 or 3, something like that. So, and then we have running back, punter, linebacker, kick returner. I mean, none of those are big needs. I think we at the end of this episode, we'll hit on all the big needs for day 1, day 2, maybe even day 3 for some of these guys that we like based on the fact that we know what the team looks for. We know what the team needs. So like last week, we were talking about defensive tackle, and I said, well, listen, if we're going to get a defensive tackle, I want him to be able to be a one tech, because the best way to optimize Ed Oliver's play is to get a good one tech next to him. There were some 3 tech defensive tackles that I didn't put on there because they're not as good at holding up blockers. They're not as good as, run stuffing, stuff like that. Like Derek Harmon was a guy I left off, but I see him in a lot of mock drafts to the Buffalo Bills. He's a defensive tackle out of Oregon. He's 6'6", I believe, 313 pounds, huge guy, much bigger than Ed Oliver, almost the size of Daquan Jones. The problem is he's more of a penetrating defensive tackle. He is more of a pass rush defensive tackle. He's probably would end up being our best pass rushing defensive tackle if we took him. Now, I didn't draft thinking that that's something we definitely need. Could we use it? Absolutely. The Bills could definitely use a defensive tackle. But I was looking more at the range of who could start immediately or very soon, rotate in, and also be an impact for years to come. Whereas Derek Harmon, I think, would be more of an impact on passing downs now, but I don't think that his skill set would be used as well by being a 3-down defensive tackle for the Buffalo Bills, unless they got rid of Ed Oliver, which is a possibility, but they did just extend him last offseason. So I think it's unlikely. So that was my logic with it. If they drafted Derek Harmon, would I be upset? Absolutely not. I think he's talented. I think he would bring a position that, we could use. It's just not ideal in my eyes. as a Bills fan, as as someone that watches the team and sees where they have good talent and lack some talent. That's how I see it. So John, we're going to go over defensive end first. So we kind of talked about this over text message, and we said, well, this is what I see. Why don't I take defensive end? You take wide receiver. So we're going to do that. Just going to go over again the deepest positions in this NFL draft. Number one, defensive tackle, luckily, is the biggest need. It kind of falls perfectly within, the Bills' needs. Number two is defensive end, edge rusher, which we're going to talk about tonight. Number three is offensive tackle. Not a big need for the Buffalo Bills in this draft. It's actually one of their strongest positions right now, at least on paper, is offensive tackle. So maybe they take a flyer on one late. We'll see. Cornerback is number 4, wide receiver is number 5, and running back is number 6. So actually, for the top 5, we will have discussed in this episode and last episode. So I'm going to talk about the defensive end traits that I was looking for in this NFL draft. And so when I'm looking at defensive end, edge rusher, one thing that sticks out to me first and foremost is the ability to get to the quarterback. There are guys in the top 10 of most rankings of defensive ends that are big guys, they're athletic, and they're more run defenders than they are pass rushers. That's just the way that they are right now. Could they end up becoming much more than that? Sure. But as of right now, coming out of college, some of these guys have much higher run stuff ratings than they do pass rush ratings. So when I was looking at guys, I'm looking at pass rush grades. I'm looking at pass rush win rates on true pass downs or just passing downs in general, or just downs in general. Like, those are the guys I want. I want guys that can get to the quarterback, because we have defensive ends that are able to contain, set the edge. We have that. Greg Rousseau is very good at that. He also happens to be one of our best pass rushers too. But I'm looking for a guy that can basically raise that level to a new level. I want a guy that can potentially outperform Greg Rousseau in the first year, either in situational downs as a rookie or potentially beating out. I mean, he's not going to beat out Joey Bosa, let's be honest. Like, it's unlikely that they're going to become a starter, but a rotational pass rusher, absolutely. And I think that when we look at these guys, John, like I'm still high on Javon Solomon from Troy last year, their 5th round defensive end. Like, I'm high on him because he was good. He was good in a very weak conference and a very weak schedule, right? Like, he was very good. He's undersized. He's only 6'2". He's like 240 pounds. Like, he's not a big guy. He's not long. He doesn't have all these elite traits. He did have performance in a lower conference. It's like, well, that's why they took him in the 5th round, right? Like, that's what you're looking for. Well, the guys that I'm looking for are guys that are not from lesser conferences, that, are a little bit bigger, and that also have good pass rush grades and win rates. So that's what I look at for these traits. Is a guy that when Joey Bosa leaves in a year, potentially when his contract's up, they're going to have a guy that can replace him and be next to on the other side of Greg Rousseau. That's basically what I'm looking for. And if you look at the tweet I'm showing below, someone just read Mafia Madness. Do you boys read chats? Just did Mafia Madness. I just read your chat. Yes, I do. If it's good, Mafia Madness, we don't just do this for everyone. But Jared is in 24/7 Buff Pandemonium. Those guys are always good. James Pearce Jr. We're going to talk about. Braden Swinson we're going to talk about. And some guy that's not on here that we're going to talk about, right? So, nice. Mafia Man is first-time listener. Thank you for coming in, brother. Or sister, whatever the case may be. And we're going to talk about someone else. So first and foremost, guys that I did not include on the list. Like last week when we talked defensive tackles, I didn't talk about Mason Graham. He's probably not going to be there, right? Probably not going to be there for the Bills. Probably a top 10 pick. In this situation for defensive ends, guys like Abdul Carter from Penn State, Mike Green from Marshall, those are top 10, top 5 guys. If they end up making it to the Buffalo Bills, run up to the podium and take them. They won't be there. Odds are very unlikely that they'll be there. I mean, these are literally guys that have average draft positions of like 15. Like Abdul Carter's is like top 5. He will go in the top 5. Mike Green is like top 15. Now, where it gets interesting are the guys after that. And the first one I'm going to start off with is defensive end James Pearce Jr. out of Tennessee. 6'5", 243 pounds, edge rusher. He's only 21 years old. I'm bringing up age now. I didn't do that last week, but I'm bringing up age because a lot of these guys that are in the first round are at that perfect age range of 21, 20, 21, 22, think of that age range. Whereas guys that are 24, 25 kind of get pushed into day 2, day 3, even if they're really good prospects, just because, you're talking about guys that are 24, 25, they're going to be almost 30 by the time they get to their second contract. Like, that's a Matt Milano issue that we're having right now. Love Matt Milano, but he was an older prospect coming out, and that's what we're seeing now. So he 21 RAS score, John, of a 9.4 RAS score. So just to put that in perspective, John, what do you think Greg Rousseau was, if you had to guess, out of 10? Just to put things in perspective, right?
I have no idea. It's a lot, but I don't remember how much I like Rousseau coming out. I know Rousseau was like a raw prospect, right?
Oh yeah, he was only 20, I think, 21.
But he was a, from a athletic freak standpoint, was really good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason why they took him, and he had a great year.
I mean, he's 6'6", 266 pounds.
I can guess similar. I don't know.
He's 7.7, 7.7, and this is Pearce Jr., 9.4. So more athletic at that position, size-wise, explosiveness, everything that you're looking for. He has that above him. Besides, he's not as big as Greg Rousseau, but there's a lot to like about him. Solomon, I think, Javon Solomon, I believe, was in a 8. Now I'm going to have to check it up. I was just looking at this today. Javon Solomon. Oh, there's too many Solomon Thomases and stuff like that. Javon Solomon is... Okay, we don't have it. That's cool. All good. Oh, no, 7.29. So, you're talking about a guy already athletic. So what's interesting is, by the way, Mafia Madness brought this up. He's like, I really like James Pearce Jr., but I think the earliest we should take a defensive end should be at 62 with our second round pick. And I don't disagree with that at all, Mafia Madness. By the way, I don't think the Bills should necessarily take a defensive end or edge rusher at number 30 unless a guy like this becomes available, a guy that could potentially be a starter from day one, or a guy that can easily slide in as a starter if Joey Bosa gets injured, if Gregory Rousseau gets injured, right? This is a guy that I would want. I don't think the Bills necessarily will draft that one. And that's another thing. When I was looking at defensive ends earlier, John, there's a lot of guys that project more as 3-4 outside linebackers, right? Rush linebackers. I didn't include any of those guys because I think that's too much of a switch in position in the first round and potentially the second round, which is where, we're looking at most of these picks. Unless the Bills somehow get back into the third round, maybe, but still unlikely at that level. And right now he's a projected top 30 pick. We're looking at his pass rush grades now right before highlights. Huge pass rush grade. An elite pass rush win rate at 23%. If you look at, not only that, is he an excellent, athletically gifted, long, 6'5", 243 pounds, excellent pass rush grades, excellent run defense grades. I mean, he is elite in a lot of different areas, right? So there's a lot to like about him. I don't think the Bills necessarily will take an edge defender with their first overall pick or their first round pick. But, I mean, if they did, because some of the corners aren't available, some of the defensive tackles aren't available, I wouldn't be that upset. I think this is a guy that they could use in the first season, in his rookie season. At least there was a rotational guy. So here, I'm going to share some of the highlights right now. So if you guys are watching this on streaming YouTube, you're going to see some of the really cool highlights of James Pearce Jr. Here he is, Tennessee against UTEP. I mean, it's UTEP, right? So it's not going to be crazy, but looking great there, obviously.
You can already see the score, 42-0 before on that first clip.
So he's basically the kind of athlete, like, he has production disruption scores that, like, just don't leave the first round normally. There are people that have compared him to Randy Gregory, which is not a bad comparison whatsoever. He's a twitchy player. He's got fast hands. He's quick off the ball. We talked about his elite athletic traits. He has good anticipation for snap. He has excellent pursuit of the ball carrier. We talked about his run stuffing grades. Here he is against Alabama, pushing the pocket. I mean, we're talking about sacks are great. He had 8 sacks at Tennessee. Sure, would we love a bunch of sacks? We just need somebody to disrupt the quarterback at times. I mean, I'm thinking about the postseason. I'm thinking about the Super Bowl. Somebody get into Patrick Mahomes' face so he doesn't just have a free lane to open up and throw to whoever Kaiir Elam is guarding. Like, let's get somebody to get a hand up and get in his way. This is something that I think James Pearce Jr. would be. for some reason, so the knocks on this guy, I talked about how much I love him from all these different perspectives. The knocks on him are, this one is just, he just doesn't have a high snap count. He's a lot lower than a lot of his peers. And some of that has to do with the way that Tennessee runs their defense. But then just recently, there have been some reports of character concerns of James Pearce Jr. Some of them stemming from the fact that they think he's uncoachable. There's not a lot of, what is it called, actual reports of who that's from. No quotes, obviously, unnamed sources. And so I wonder, is this a guy that was, he was supposed to be a top 5 pick if he came out in 2023. Or 2024 rather. He's coming out this year. People were thinking he was going to be a top 10, top 15 pick. All of a sudden, his draft stock is going down because of all these things. Does he even become available potentially to the Buffalo Bills at 30? Or if they move up a few spots to get him, a guy that would never normally be around at that level, a guy that could potentially be like a top 5 pick in a normal edge class or top 10 pick. Now he's available for the Buffalo Bills because of how deep this class is. So I think there's a lot to like about him, John. I think he fits in. He plugs right into the Bills defense, and he gives them something that they don't have. I mean, I went back to real quick his pass rush grades. He has a pass rush grade of 89.4. The closest one to that on the Buffalo Bills last season was 85, and that was Von Miller, which, I take PFF grades with a grain of salt at times because the eye test didn't really prove that for Von Miller. I don't know how he got, but the next closest one, if you were to go off that, was like a 75.8 for Greg Rousseau. So you're talking 15 points higher. Sure, it's college football. Sure, it's NCAA. It is not. It's SEC football, though, but it's not the NFL. How does that translate? Does it translate? Probably not 100%, right? But at the same time, we're looking at a guy that could, come in, and I'm really excited about him. I think if the Bills had a potential option and they couldn't get the corner they like, they couldn't get the defensive tackle they like, I would absolutely take James Pearce Jr.
I like Pearce. I don't even know.
So now we're on to the next draft prospect. You like Pearce?
I do. He might not even be available.
Probably not. This is a guy that, like we were talking about last year, last week, my guys that I really wanted for the Buffalo Bills in the first round was Kenneth Grant, if he's available. Probably not going to be available. Another guy, this is my Kenneth Grant for defensive ends. If he's available and the Bills can't get Kenneth Grant, they can't get.
They're not going to get Kenneth Grant. There's no way.
It's a hope, John. It's hope. Who'd you have? Trey Amos last week.
Trey Amos is a what do I want to say? Realistic option for them to pick up. Kenneth Grant's going to be way gone by the time he's top 10.
Oh yeah. I see. It's funny. I've been seeing him go to the Bills. He's one of the most mocked players to the Buffalo Bills right now. I don't know, John. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway,
sure. Yeah, if he's there, take him. Jeez.
Hambone says only take Pearce if he falls to the second round. If he falls to the second round, I'd be one of those teams that you've already taken your first round pick with a corner or someone else. I would be trading both second round picks to get up there to take Pearce for sure. I think that would be absolutely worth it. Imagine getting a cornerback 1 potentially, or at least a starting corner outside of Christian Benford, and then getting your potential long-term edge defender. I mean, sign me up, dude. Get your double dip at defensive tackle in the 4th round or whatever, and then go from there. Take a few of them because you're set, I think, at those positions. So we'll see. We'll see with that. Next guy I want to talk about, he's not in a first-round talent territory. We're talking more in the line of bottom of the second round, mid to bottom of the second round, and that is JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State. He is 6'5", 269 pounds. Again, usually those kinds of traits that the Bills like with their first day 1, day 2 picks. He's only 21 years old and an RAS score of 9.33. So again, huge up there, hugely athletic guy right now. You're talking about a guy that had 15 sacks in 2024, 14 quarterback hits. I mean, now I'm showing you the pass rush grades, really good pass rush grade, better run defense grade. His true pass rush grade is much higher, almost at the elite level. And then his pass rush win rate in general is well above average. So you're looking at a guy that could potentially step in and be a guy that can, shadow in and maybe rotate in his first season, but a guy that has strength, size, weight. Remember when the Bills drafted? I'm going to share the highlights with all y'all that are watching right now for JT. There we go. You think about guys like AJ Epinesa, the Bills drafted in the second round just a few years ago. He was 6'5". He was more in the 280 range. The Bills and then they made him slim down. The Bills like guys that are already in this range. They slimmed him down. I want to say AJ to like 260, 265. I mean, JT's already there. He's at 269. Maybe they make him lose a few pounds, maybe not. But again, you're talking with a guy that has a huge motor, strong motor, powerful first step, his great consistent hand placement, good leverage. He has no fear when it comes to linemen pulling down against him. Some of the issues that he has is he struggles against tackles with long arms. Some of his anticipation when it comes to some of these plays, whether it's in the run or pass or play action, like it's a little bit slow on some of the anticipation. But I mean, he's a day 2 prospect. I don't think this is a guy that, he could make AJ Epinesa basically, trade bait if he comes in soon. So John Roberts just mentioned this is AJ's last season under contract. Yeah, great guy that could easily and in my opinion has more upside than AJ ever did. So you gotta love that. You gotta love a guy that played for a huge team, huge conference. I mean, we talked about Tennessee earlier in the SEC. Now we're talking about Ohio State. Guys that I like. When you're looking at guys that are day 2, day 3, they don't have all the pass rush moves and all the arsenals. This is more of a power guy. So I think that he has the ability to do a lot more than that. And I think with good coaching, he will get there. So I like this guy, John. He is my number 2 guy right now. I think that the guys that the Bills should consider and might consider on day 2. So that's GT.
I like it. I think it would be a great option for a second round pick.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm looking at for JT. I think he's more of a second round pick and more of like hey, can we trade back into the 3rd round and get him? I'd be stoked if we could somehow do that. So guys are talking in the thread. No way I'm trading both second round draft picks, leaving myself with no second or 3rd round picks wouldn't be a smart move. I'm letting too much talent go off the board at positions of need. I meant trading both second round picks to move up to another second round pick. I didn't mean getting rid of both of them. That was my thought on that. So we talked about defensive end DJ Tuimoloau from Ohio State. Now we're going into my 3rd favorite defensive end for the Buffalo Bills. And this is Braden Swinson, a guy who's 6'4", 250 pounds. Again, you're seeing a consistent measurable roughly with size, length, weight. I think, John, we're going to see that similarly with your wide receivers when we talk about that. He's from LSU. He's 22 years old. There was no RAS score for Braden Swinson. There hasn't been one yet. And it's because he was injured at the time. He is a projected top 70 pick. So we're looking, bottom of the 2nd, top of the 3rd time frame. So possibly a trade back for him. So here's a guy. I'm going to show the grades right now. Guy that had 9 sacks last year in 2024, 43 quarterback hurries. He has a great pass rush grade of 90.3, an above average run defense grade. Again, not great. That's why you're looking at a 3rd round pick. If he was elite in both, he would be a 1st round pick, right? So me, again, as the Bills GM for Circling the Wagons, for my portion of the defensive end, where I'm looking at defensive ends, edge rushers, again, pass rush over run defense for now, because the Bills are better at run defense right now. Let's tip the scales the other way for the Bills pass rush. You're looking at pass rush win rate, 22.1%, like elite level pass rush win rate. And then again, true pass rush grade. And again, very average run stop grade at this point. So you're looking at that. I'm going to share some highlights of Bray right now. Here. Oh, and let's see. So just to give, my wife was just telling me that I was a little bit louder than I should be for this time of night.
A little bit louder now.
I was looking for that mask. So my wife, I had this mask. If you guys have not seen the episode the last few months, it is a Nacho Libre mask. Shut up. Nacho Libre mask, which I like to call myself lovingly Nacho Libre. with it is a Bills mask. You cannot tell because I'm never looking to the side. So what's the point of having it? But I do have a new mask that I might put on this next week. I just found it. My wife threw it down the stairs. So I'll put that one on next. That'll be a preview. So going back to Braden Swinson, one of the reasons why, again, he's not higher on the list is he didn't become a full-time starter until this last season. But right now, out of the gate, as a pass rusher in LSU, I mean, he's already showing a ton of potential in one season. Again, this is why he's a day 2 pick, because this isn't the kind of guy that you necessarily, I mean, he has good athletic skills as far as on tape, but he doesn't have an RAS score because of injuries. Arm length, he's great arm length, great burst, great hand placement, decent speed and bend around the arc, not elite, but very good. Natural movements in the pocket, active hands. The things he needs to work on still, again, he's only a 1-year guy so far, but he has a little bit, he leaves some fat on the bone as far as too many steps needed to do what he has to do. If he shortens that up, you're talking about a guy that can be maybe potentially one of the best pass rushers on the Buffalo Bills if they can get to that level. So here you see some of him doing some 3-4 outside linebacker spots. I think he has the size, though, to be a defensive end in a 4-3 look. Usually these guys are a little bit lighter at like 230, 240, and the Bills might want him to be a little bit bigger, but I think this is a guy that the Bills could look. I mean, his pass rush win rates are just so freaking good. So we'll see. Again, I was hesitant to put him on this list because he's more of a rushing outside linebacker, but a day 2, possibly early day 3 pick, I'd be willing to take a chance on a guy with all these other elite pass rush skills. So thoughts on my last guy, John, Braden Swinson out of LSU.
Interesting pick. I had a bunch of guys in the mix in there. I kind of had him pegged in the 3rd round somewhere, but you never know how these things work out. But no,
I don't think the Bills would trade up for him at all. I don't think the Bills, but I think that he's another Javon Solomon. If he falls to them, the Bills have to look at that and be like, I don't know if we can pass up on this guy. I mean, this guy might end up going in the 2nd round to a 3-4 team. You never know.
They get fall to the 4th. Who knows?
Yeah. John Roberts says, his interesting comment, do you think they will double dip at defensive end with Hoyt being out the first 6 weeks? I don't think so. I don't think defensive end is one of those positions they double dip at this year. I think they draft one. I think they draft one on John, if you had to guess where you think the Bills would draft one right now, I think the only reason that they double dip is if they did like 1/5 and 1/6 or something like that, But I don't think this is a position they double dip at. Do you?
I mean, they do have 10 picks, so that's entirely possible. I mean, their starters are set with Rousseau and Bosa, and Epidesa has tons of starting experience. And then we've mentioned Solomon. So even with Hoyt out for 6 weeks, they're probably fine. But I mean, double dipping, I mean, you could get they could do draft one at any time and then one in the 7th. Or do they have a 7th round pick? I don't know, 6th or 7th round pick. They have 10 picks. So
they have 10 picks.
Yeah. They could easily double dip at any of these positions that we're not expecting. That could be one of them. I don't know. I would like to see them double dip at corner, and definitely corner, I think. I don't know if I'm scarred from the Kyrie Elam experience. I'm like, you have 2 corners just in case.
So it's weird because I would think cornerback, I think, is my number 1 pick to double dip at right now. And I think that defensive tackle is close.
I agree. Daquan Jones is older.
I can't see Daquan leaving, though. So if you're talking about their defensive tackles that they have on the roster right now, you're talking Ogunjobi, who's out for 6 weeks.
Right.
Daquan and Ed Oliver. So there's 2 that'll be available.
And then Carter is a young guy.
Dwayne Carter, yes, exactly. So that's 3. So they usually keep about 10 defensive linemen or so. I don't even see them double dipping at defensive tackle necessarily. If they get one on day 1, definitely not. I don't think they spend more draft capital at that. Corner is the best one so far.
Maybe if it's not as specific, instead of saying corner or defensive tackle, saying they double dip at defensive back and defensive line. That's a sure thing, right? They definitely do that.
Defensive back and defensive line. I mean, corner, they could definitely do it because we mentioned the ability to move from cornerback to safety much easier than safety to cornerback. So cornerback to safety, 2 cornerbacks seems
Right.
almost like a lock.
And they could use more safety help. So
John Robert mentioned they may trade up for a 3rd round pick, or they may trade out of one of those 2nd round picks to get a 3rd round pick. I mean, all those things are on the table. I mean,
sure.
the Bills don't have enough roster spots that I think that they can keep all 10 picks. I think they're going to end up having to either move some into 2026 or trade up in some way, shape, or form to move that number from 10 to like 7 or 8. You know what I mean? And they do like picking up future picks. So that's definitely a possibility. So, John, we talked enough about defensive end. We talked about James Pearce Jr., JT Tuimoloau, and then we talked about Braden Swinson from LSU. Let's talk about wide receiver for you. So, I mean, I have my own idea for wide receiver traits. What receiver traits were you looking for when picking out the Bills' wide receiver draft prospects?
So one of the biggest traits for me was a speedster down the field. And unfortunately, the 3 guys that I picked have none of those abilities, but they have other abilities. So this draft isn't great for receiver. They do have a couple of guys that are fast, but this draft has more bigger guys, more possession type receivers that can make contested catches, which is another trait that the Bills kind of need. I know they just drafted Cam Coleman last year, but for my money, I'm picking those types of guys in this draft because that's what this draft is better at, I think.
Boundary wide receivers, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not the speed, but more possession guys like Keon Coleman. If you think about it, the Bills lost 2 of their best boundary receivers, Amari Cooper and Matt Collins, and the only one that they have replaced really is with Joshua Palmer. So they absolutely have another. I mean, Khalil Shakir is for all intents and purposes their slot receiver, right? And then when he isn't, it's Curtis Samuel. So they have their slot receiver down. It's a matter of getting a boundary receiver, right? So those are the kind of guys that you were looking for. Sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes sense. Like you said, if you can't get a speed guy, this draft is deep, but maybe not deep in the ways that we were hoping for. But then again, some of these guys you're talking about that you will be talking about have speed. They're just not 10 times better than what the Bills have. They as good as anyone on the Bills, but maybe not better, right?
Yeah, and I was kind of targeting guys in like maybe the 2nd round for the guys I was going to talk about. I definitely don't want them to draft another 1st round guy that can catch the ball like they did with Kincaid and Keon the last 2 years. I do think they should do defense, so I kind of focus more on maybe one of their 2 2nd round picks or something like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you did that because I think it's unlikely they go day 1 wide receiver. So the earliest you're thinking is like 2nd round pick, maybe one of their 2nd round picks. They consider it if they fall to them. I don't think they see it as big of a need, but I mean, you can never have too many weapons for Josh Allen for sure.
Mhm.
So who's this first guy you're talking about?
Okay, you don't want to say the name first? That's up to me. Okay.
Oh, did you want me
Elic
to try?
Elic Ayoanor. Ayoanor, right? That's right.
Sure.
That's right. I think that's right. Ayoanor.
Yeah.
Big guy out of Stanford. He's got good size. He's a good route runner. Physical, makes contested catches. He's not a burner, but he's good. He's got good speed for his size. One of the negatives might be maybe some drop balls, but he's definitely a possessional receiver, and I think he could be one of those outside guys that would work out well.
Mm-hmm. He's not like he doesn't have crazy PFF grades. I mean, he's really good versus man coverage. He's got a good receiving grade. He's like average yards per route run, but then again, that kind of has to do with the offense. I don't think that's necessarily on him. Doesn't have a great drop percentage rate, but when you look at the RAS score I showed earlier, 9.71. 9.71. That's crazy. That's crazy athletic. And the Bills don't really have someone like that on their roster. I'm going to look up Keon Coleman's RAS score, but I guarantee it wasn't 9.7. I would have remembered that. Keon Coleman was an 8.1. Again, very good. Good. Very good. But it's not 9.7. So you're talking about a guy that has that size and athletic ability that none of the Bills receivers currently possess. So now we're looking at some highlights of Alec. So John, I like this pick. You're talking about a guy who had 831 yards, 63 receptions on 109 targets, 6 touchdowns in 2024. Very similar production in 2023. John, I get this feeling that you have a high floor with this guy, and then with his athletic attributes, you have somewhat of a high ceiling as well. Is that kind of like what you saw when you were looking at him?
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, exactly. Like if he fell to them for one of their second round picks, like I think it would be a great value for what he can do.
I think he's a great Mac Hollins replacement. Like this guy doesn't have like great separation rates in single coverage, but you're looking at a guy that's, I mean, I think he could be a Mac Hollins plus immediately, and then from there we'll see. They've likened him to James Jones, but he's an ideal like prototype size receiver, right? And the Bills need more of that on the roster. Unless Keon Coleman takes that huge step this next year to be that guy, then they're going to need more of these types of guys on the roster. I like that. He is one of the things I saw in his scouting report was that, and they won't show highlights of this that we're watching, but he has a frame and willingness that help him effectively block through the whistle, which I thought was really cool because that is something the Bills love in their wide receivers, isn't it? That's one of the things that I think we're going to miss the most about Mac Hollins is his ability to block, right? So, I mean, this is a guy I could see potentially a day 2 pick on, early day 2, second round, but maybe they trade back into the third round, early third, or whatever. But if he's available and those defensive prospects aren't available that we mentioned earlier, I'd be perfectly fine with getting a guy like Elic Ayoanor. Ayoanor. Yeah. Great football intelligence. Yeah. He's just not shifty. He's just not a super shifty guy. John, if you had a guy that was 9.7 RAS score, 6'2", 210 pounds, super athletic, and he had amazing separation, like the guy would be a top 10 pick, right? Like, he's got good hands. We're seeing him with a one-handed catch in Syracuse. A lot to like. All right. So that was cool looking at Elic out of Stanford. Let's go back to the wide receivers. John, who's our next wide receiver we're looking at?
Jayden Higgins, Iowa State. Let's go. Even bigger. 6'4".
There's a trend, John. I'm noticing a trend. Oh,
He's
also
got
the
the
trend.
yak,
Yep.
yards after the catch, big body, red zone, and contested catch threat. Again, not a burner, like one of the traits we've been looking for, but good hands. He can be hard to cover down the sideline. He's got that mismatched size. He might have to work on some separation issues maybe at the next level, but great prospect, right?
This is a guy, it's funny, you were looking at the ratings. He's actually rated higher in a lot of different areas than Elic that we just went over. Jayden Higgins you're talking about production. He had 1,185 yards receiving, 129 targets, 87 receptions, 9 touchdowns last season. Just the grades that I'm showing right here on the screen, 90.5 receiving grade, which is like very like upper echelon, 2.66 yards per route run, really low drop rate percentage, good contested catch rate, and great grades versus man coverage. There's a lot to like. It's funny, he's a top 50 pick. He's just a little bit higher than Elic. And I know you didn't give me these names necessarily in order of where you thought they would go or whatever, but Jayden Higgins is a guy. Oops, gave a preview of what we're going to show, but whoops, for those watching. But I'm going to share some of the highlights with Jayden while we're talking a little bit more on this. Again, 22 years old, elite RAS score of like 9.63. Again, a lot of these guys we're looking at 21, 22 years old. He's a reliable receiver, run a diverse route tree, which is great to have. He's just not super athletic. The people don't think he'll be athletic in the NFL as far as his separation, but great hands, man. I feel like I know you didn't give ratings over this guy. I'd probably take him over Elic at this point, just based on what I've seen and what I've scouted on him. I think this is another perfect opportunity to replace the Amari Cooper, Mac Hollins role with a guy that can start opposite of Keon Coleman or start in place of him at times, depending on how far they are in their development. I mean, there's potential, John, that one of these 2 or 3 guys that we're going to talk about could be Keon Coleman out in training camp and take that Z position, or I'm sorry, the X receiver role. Not likely, just because they tend to side with the people that have more experience, even if the talent is greater with the newer guy. But this is good. I like him. Oh yeah, looks good, man. I've said this ever since we drafted Josh Allen, we knew he was a franchise quarterback. Every single season, draft one wide receiver and one offensive lineman every season. Whether you have 10 picks, whether you have 4 picks, find a way to give your franchise quarterback a weapon or protection. And it makes me think of the Steelers, right? The Steelers would take day 2, day 3 guys like this, right? Like a Jayden Higgins. And they get him in the third round. They get Antonio Brown in the third round. Or they'd get Antonio Holmes, or they'd get whatever, Hines Ward in the second round. Like they would get these guys with not necessarily first round picks because they would just take a swing at him like, oh, let's hope he's good. Every year they would do that. And then when eventually Antonio Brown left because they couldn't afford him, they'd already drafted his replacement. Like that's what you have to do. Get these guys, get more weapons for Josh, and get the next, Stephon Diggs or whatever the case is for Josh Allen. He's proven he can do more with less. Well, let's just give him more just because. All right. So that was a lot of Jayden Higgins, like Jayden Higgins, his prospect. Who's the last guy we're going to talk about tonight from the wide receiving group?
Biggest guy. Let's go. Savion Williams. 6'5", 225. TCU. I love it. He's got good yards after the catch. Very dangerous with the ball in his hands. He can run. He can carry the ball in the backfield like a running back. He's a very physical runner, mismatched size, red zone weapon, versatile. This is like a Debo or like a Cordell Patterson type of player. He can do a lot of different things. He might have to work on his hands a little bit, but
Yeah. I was gonna say
in general, after that, he's very interesting prospect. That's why I wanted to talk about him.
Well, you're also not talking about a first round pick either. I mean, this is a guy that's probably going to be a third round pick, end of day 2.
Second, third round pick, yeah.
John, I like it. You know who he reminds me of, which is funny because he's a big guy, so think size. He's got some drops issues, so think drops. And then he's from TCU too, so think TCU. He reminds me a little bit of Quentin Johnson from the Chargers. And I remember when the Bills were looking at receivers and Quentin Johnson, he's one of those guys that was available, or the Bills were thinking, when Jackson Smith and Jigba wasn't going to be available, guys like Jordan Addison might not be available, like guys like that. And you're looking at the next tier, and I'm like, I don't want Quentin Johnson because one of his biggest knocks was that he dropped the ball. And what does he do in the NFL? Like consistently is drop the ball from Justin Herbert. But what I will say about that is we're also not taking him with a first round pick. So if you're going to take a guy like that on day 3, I'm all good with that, man. Take a flyer on him, see what he's got, right?
Yeah, for sure. I he's got big playability. You just got to get the ball in his hands, and if that means him trying to catch it. But no, I like him a lot. I think he's a good prospect here.
He's kind of got, because he's one of those guys that does have some drops, some bad drops, some bad drops for sure. But he also has a really, if you see on the screen now, I'm showing that contested catch rate percentage. I mean, that's elite contested catch rate.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what that almost reminds me of is a little bit of Dawson Knox, right? You're talking about Dawson Knox, a guy that would drop it if it hits him right in the hands. And then when it's right in the air on his back foot with two defenders, draped over him, Dawson Knox is going to catch it every single time, right? He's that was a good catch. We're watching him right now. That was a good catch. That was behind him. It wasn't a great pass.
And Knox is one of those players that improved a lot. After
Another great catch.
Years
back corner of the end zone. Let's give Josh a 6'5", 228-pound wide receiver to throw to on the X. Here's him running. What's crazy, John, you mentioned him being a running back. We're watching a running play right now where he just bounces to the outside. So we never got an RAS score for him, but I bet you his athleticism is at least an 8 or so on the RAS score based on the fact they used him as a running back. He just ran for a touchdown, for 40 yards out of the backfield. Good athleticism. Shows up on tape. I'm surprised they're using him as a running back, 6'5". When you're talking about Deebo Samuel, I think he's 6'2", 210 or something like that. This guy's 6'5", 225. That's crazy.
And he can be elusive for his size. It's crazy.
That is. So with a guy like this, so example, Xavier Worthy had knocks on him for drops coming into the NFL. I think when you're looking at that, you kind of have to like, the Bills had big drops issues like 2 seasons ago, not last season necessarily, because Khalil Shakir looked so good and he came on so strong. But they've had issues in the past as a group, like Stephon Diggs, like guys around him, right? Like that was an issue. I think that you can get away with a guy like that who does have some drops issues, like Xavier Worthy does, like Tyreek Hill does at time, because you have the rest of your group normally when it's not Dalton Kincaid at the 4th down and 20, the NFC Championship game. These guys do catch the ball more often than not, so they have good hands. Would you take a flyer on him in the 3rd round, John? I know the Bills don't have a 3rd round pick, but if they traded back,
Yeah, absolutely. He might even be worth like one of their 2nd round picks.
Ooh, really? I mean, they've been trying to get a. God.
No, I was just gonna say it was funny you mentioned Kincaid. I feel like I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but his catch rate, his rookie year, I think was a lot better than his 2nd year. Should look it up though.
Yes. So what's funny is you mentioned like a lot of these highlights, I mean, at least half of them are probably running out of the backfield, right? As a running back. What's interesting, John, just thinking about guys, like they had an interest in trading for Deebo Samuel at one point. The Bills did sign Curtis Samuel last year, which is like a Deebo Samuel light. Like that's kind of what they were thinking. They've been trying to get a guy like this for the team for several seasons now. So that makes me think even more that if the opportunity was available, if the cost was right, they would take a guy like this. Maybe it's not specifically Savion Williams, but like this type, like that you picked out, I think is very possible, for them to look. They've been looking for a guy like this. It just hasn't worked out necessarily. And maybe Curtis Samuel takes that next step. Maybe he gets over that turf toe injury, or maybe he gels. I don't know. Or maybe they get this guy and they end up cutting him post June 1st. I have no idea. But I like that pick a lot. We're seeing a lot of like speed. I mean, his game speed is pretty good. Again, probably an 8 or 9 on the RAS if I had to take a guess at it, a stab at it. And he's definitely got it for the size. The explosiveness and speed, I think, would be next to that. So I like it, John. John, if you had to, while we finish up watching these highlights, if you had to take a wide receiver in the 2nd round with one of your 2nd round picks, let's say your 2nd of the 2nd round picks, what would your ideal draft have to be with those first 2 picks to be able to justify taking a wide receiver with a 2nd round pick?
I mean, if they took one of the corners we discussed before, like a Trey Amos, or we talked defensive tackle.
If they went corner, defensive tackle, or defensive tackle, corner, yeah.
I mean,
yeah, agreed. I think if they went edge rusher at any of those first 2 spots, I feel like they don't go wide receiver until round 4 at the earliest, which is basically what John Robert just said. I don't think they get until. I think the only way they justify wide receiver in a 2nd round is if they get one of their top 2 needs with their first 2 picks.
Right, and it have to be it has to be a receiver that they had tiered higher than some of the other positions, or like, oh, we definitely have this receiver in a higher tier. We gotta take him. I don't think it's likely either. I think it's, especially since they got Palmer, they're not going to focus on that as much.
Yeah, I mean, agreed, but they're still missing just numbers, right? I mean, you're still thinking, Amari Cooper and Matt Collins, they're still missing 1. I just don't know if it's going to be day 2.
Yeah, you're looking at day 3. I mean,
2nd
there's guys in the 3 to 5 round range. There's a bunch of guys in that range.
Mm-hmm. And you're looking at, I mean, he's going to be a 3rd round pick probably. If they traded back and got a 3rd round pick with one of their 2nd round picks, I think that would be definitely worthy of taking a wide receiver. Some reason round 2 just seems too early, and they don't have a 3rd round pick as of right now. So I'm thinking, like John mentioned, a 4th round pick, unless they trade back and gain more picks. That's at least what I see. So anything can happen.
Yeah,
but
it's tough.
Yeah. So I think next week, John, what we're going to talk about is some ideal draft scenarios. Like we talked about double dipping just now, positions to take.
It's not the chip. Don't double dip the chip.
John, you ever double dip a chip?
No, never. Can't do that.
Have you?
Never. Well, if it's my own bowl, my own personal bowl.
If it's your own personal bowl, you'll quadruple chip
I know.
Quadruple dip.
I don't care.
It's all going to the same spot anyway. You know what's funny is I saw that episode when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I never forgot it because I think honestly, as an 8 or 9-year-old going to parties, you go to relative parties or party at your parents' friends' houses or whatever. I guaranteed I double dipped at least once as a kid, at least once.
For sure. Without even thinking about it.
Oh yeah. What about with your family? Now, if it's your immediate family, do you double dip or you don't even do that?
I think I don't, just out of habit. Or
Yeah, me too. Me too. Growing up, though, I don't know how I felt about that. I think I was okay with that. I was okay infecting I didn't know see, my kids know so much more about germs than I ever knew as a kid. Like washing your hands. We didn't talk about washing your hands as a kid. We did just out of like hygiene, but it wasn't like, well, there's bacteria, and as soon as you touch something that was in, then it becomes in your food. Like I didn't. I remember going to visit one of my college friends in Manhattan, and we took the subway from Long Island to Manhattan. We got off, we go up to his parents', place, I guess, apartment or whatever you want to call it. And parents are super nice. Like, hey, how would you guys like a cookie? I'm like, oh, who doesn't want a cookie? I'm 23 years old. I would love a cookie. And she's like, well, did you wash your hands? I was like, no. I just got here. She's like, oh, well, you were just on the subway. That's dirty. And I was just like, oh yeah, that's disgusting. I should definitely wash my hands. I was touching. There were so many different people or things touching those handrails. I should not be the one to eat I should, because everything. It's so funny. Just a different. My kids know so much more about that than I ever did growing up. So cool, man. Hey, can I share one of my favorite prospects? Last week I talked about defensive tackle Desmond Watson for Florida. He was 6'5", 464 pounds, like unreal. Probably going to go undrafted. That big, huge dude from Florida, like smashing ball carriers on the ground. Just like, hey, isn't this an interesting guy? Can I show you another interesting guy that we will never talk about, probably past this, unless the Bills somehow draft him? But this is a guy.
No, you can't.
This is we talked about like the 6'4", 464 pound defensive tackle. Here's an offensive lineman. He's a guard at 5'10" and 270 pounds out of North Carolina. 5'10", 270 pounds. I didn't look at his RAS score, but it's got to be below a 4 just based on him being 5'10" and under 300 pounds as a guard. But he did not allow a sack the last 2 seasons in North Carolina. Look at him handle this defensive tackle at the Senior Bowl. The guy's probably got like 50 pounds on him and like 6 inches, and he just handled him. Did that whole, what's that called? The hand drop move that Deion Dawkins likes to do. He just did it right there. If you guys are watching this on my screen, just like, dude, if I'm going to give love to the big guys, the big boys, dude, I got to give love to the short kings over here. We got to represent one way or another for this out there. So it's fun to find these prospects. If you guys have any that are like this, like Willie Lampton out of North Carolina, dude, send them on. I'd love to hear more about him, because we're going to start talking about, ideal draft scenarios. We're going to talk about, we're probably going to have someone on to interview potentially, like a draft expert. We want to talk about mid-round guys that we would like to see, guys that are very intriguing. I know the year before that, I can't remember, it was Javon Walker out of UCF. I think it was last year. But guys like that, guys that you like in the middle rounds, like day 3 picks, that for some reason either they only have 1 year of production, or they're from a small school, or like Willie, they're 5'10" as a guard, right? Like guys like that show that sort of potential that you like. Let us know, because I'd love to talk about them, and we're going to find our own that we've been looking at for now. And some of these guys, honestly, we've been talking about just in general, because these are guys that are like D3 picks, some of these guys, but we like them for the Buffalo Bills. So yeah. Willie Lampkin, sorry, it's Lampkin, not Lampton. So, yeah, it's funny. He has the 5th highest grade of all guards in Pro Football Focus. But right now he's currently I don't think he was even at the combine, to be honest. I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah. So a lot of fun stuff to talk about. John, any final thoughts before we end this one?
No, I'm good.
I like John Robert. He's been crushing it today. Thank you guys all for commenting, coming in, sharing your thoughts. He mentioned Tyrell Shavers may take Matt Collins' place. I love that as an option for sure. Do I still think the Bills should draft someone? Definitely, just to cover all your bases, because the Bills, for all intents and purposes, will have Tyrell Shaver until he becomes a restricted free agent, because he was undrafted. This will be his 3rd year, I believe, with the Bills. So like they're in no fear of losing Tyrell Shavers unless he absolutely destroys it in training camp. So I think you still draft a guy, but it's good to have a potential option as Tyrell Shaver. And I like Tyrell. I mean, he's got the size for sure. So yeah, liking that. So anyways, thank you guys all for watching, for listening, for subscribing, for reviewing. Appreciate you guys all doing that. If you ever share on social media, tag us so that I can also share that, from whether it's on Instagram, X, Twitter, Facebook, wherever. And yeah, we can reach a little bit more of an audience that loves Bills and football and the draft like we do. So thank you guys all for listening. Signing off for John.
Bills.
And for me, Nate. Go Bills. Thank you guys all for listening, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Circling the Wagons podcast. Download and subscribe to us in your favorite podcast service. Email us at ctwpod@gmail.com. That's Charlie Tango Whiskey Pod@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at CTWPod. And most importantly, go Bills!
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, Nate.
Well, listen, the whole show is called Circling the Wagons. Say no more. I love it.